Hi guys, my name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we have the Mass Effect book tag. So today, the day you should be seeing this, the day it is going up, it is November 7th, which is N7 Day, or basically Mass Effect Day for all the fans of the game. N7 is a rank in like the Alliance military that Commander Shepard has, so that is why we celebrate on November 7th. And I found this book tag by Mar from Stella Thoughts, and I was very excited to try this out. Now, some of these questions are going to be sort of spoilery for the game, but I don't think they're overly spoilery. There is at least one that is though, and I will let you guys know before we get there because the question is also a spoiler for the book that I have to pick out for the question. It's a whole thing, but I'm very excited to get into this. I don't remember how many questions we have, but we basically have questions pertaining to the characters and places and endings of Mass Effect. So let's jump right on in. Number 1, Commander Shepard. We have actually two parts to this question. One is Paragon, a main character that puts the needs of everyone else before their own. For this one, I am going with Katie Grant from the Illuminae files, specifically Illuminae. I absolutely love this series, but she is one of those characters that as shit starts to go down on this spaceship and in the plot, she definitely has to think less about herself and more about the remaining people on the spaceship. I can't really get into specifics, especially near the end of the book, but she makes ultimately selfless decisions, and I think she fits perfectly for this question. She would make an excellent Paragon. And then we have Renegade, a character that chooses to do bad things for the greater good. So this one, I don't necessarily think it is a bad character, but it is definitely a morally gray character. And I'm going with Rin from the Poppy War. Again, the reason why I'm picking Rin is because of the events near the end of the book. She is definitely a morally gray character who does things that I don't personally agree with. She's not necessarily a bad person, but she does some things that are questionable, that could be considered bad, because she's trying to do it for the greater good. She's in the middle of a war. I mean, decisions have to be made, and sometimes she's the one that does it. So now we're moving into question 2, Eden Prime, the book or book series that got you into reading. So I have a lot of like middle grade sort of things I could have picked for this one. I definitely considered like Artemis Fowl, Anne of Green Gables, that kind of stuff. However, if I'm looking back far enough to the things I can try to remember from like way back when I started reading really early, I'm gonna have to say The Boxcar Children by Gertrude Chandler Warner. This is a series that went on for tons of books, it seems like, but the first one came out in 1989. I was born in 1990, and I think my mom had them. She's a teacher, and back then she was teaching, I want to say, like the early elementary school grades, and I think they were part of her classroom set from what I'm remembering, but we had The Boxcar Children. And it was basically these orphans who run away or didn't want to be taken into the system, and they live in an abandoned boxcar. I don't remember much about it because it's been forever. They're very thin, so like early young reader type of stuff. But I definitely remember devouring them, and I feel like those have to be some of my earliest books that I read and loved. Number 3, Liara Tassoni, a book that taught you something new. This one took me forever to figure out because I'm sure I've learned things from the books I read. However, I mostly read fiction, and so I don't think of anything popping up to me right away of like, oh, I learned this from a book. And I don't really read that much nonfiction. So I did figure out one. It's gonna be a little bit weird, but we're going with it. And that's gonna be my son's Chinese New Year Colors by Rich Lowe. So this is a children's board book all about the colors. And it has the name in English and in Mandarin. And let me tell you, I just recited a lot of this from memory. So I basically know my colors in Mandarin now. Now, I'm not saying anything about my pronunciation because I'm pretty sure it is horrible. I am so bad at the different inflections that are part of this, but I know my colors. I have learned my colors in Mandarin. Now, if only I knew how to count higher than like 4. Number 4, Garrus Vakarian, a character that brought joy or life to an otherwise sad or too serious book. This was another one that was hard for me because I don't read too many things that I would consider as an overall sad or serious book. However, the book I did end up picking is going to have hard topics in it, and that's going to all be The One by Lila Lee. I'm picking our main character of Sky. I absolutely loved her. She is a breath of fresh air, such a nice, fun, happy person, but she is also plus-sized in a K-pop competition, so she is dealing with fat phobia from her mother as well as judges in this competition. But overall, she's a very happy teenaged girl. I really loved reading from her perspective. And even though this book isn't overly sad or anything like that, it does have those hard topics that could make it serious. But this character made the book for me. I absolutely loved it. Number 5, Vermeer. We also have 2 parts to this question. The first one is Kaden Alenko, a book that was boring in the beginning but ended up becoming good. Let me tell you, some of these questions here are a little bit brutal to the characters in Mass Effect, but I still love them. And for that one, we're going with We Were Restless Things by Cole Nagamatsu. This is one that I read at the beginning of October, and I did ultimately end up giving it 3 stars. The main reason is because it was very slow at the beginning and a bit boring. I wasn't too sure where it was going. I think I expected something a little bit different going into this book because we were sort of told in the summary that there was a kid that had died in the forest of this town. He had drowned, but there was no water nearby, and one of our main characters of Nomi knows about a mysterious lake that is sometimes there, sometimes not, and the ghost of the dead boy is sort of like coming back and talking to her, but it felt more like a real life living day-to-day, like a slice of life sort of story. And it's more about how these characters deal with the aftermath of that death more than the paranormal aspect or the mystery aspect that I was wanting from it. We did get a little bit more of that in the second half of the book, and I do actually want to reread it knowing what I know now going into it, because that beginning was just a little bit, like I said, slow and a little bit boring for me, but I do think it picked up in the second half. And this one also does have like found footage. That's not right. It has like journal pages in it that were not in the arc that I actually ended up reading for it, so I'm curious to see what I would think about it a second time. And then we also have Ashley Williams, a book or book series that no matter how many times you have tried, you just cannot get into it. I'm cheating a little bit with this question because, again, I wasn't too sure about a book or book series. If I don't get into it, I just sort of DNF it and move on. It's not like I try multiple times to get into that. However, I'm gonna go with more of an author, and that is going to be Jane Austen. I am very hit or miss, mostly miss, with classics, especially the ones that are written at a certain time period where I feel like the language is a little bit too far removed from what we speak nowadays, and it takes me too long to get through. I have to slog through it. And I have tried a couple books from Jane Austen. I think Pride and Prejudice and Sense and Sensibility. I think I also tried one of her short story collections. Like she had like love stories, I think. I can't remember specifically. Are you reading your book? But I was not able to make it through any of her stuff. Question number 6, Joker, a book that made you laugh. For this one, I'm going to be going with Strangelove by Anne Aguirre. I literally laughed out loud at this book. The whole concept of this book is a like sci-fi romance where one character is an alien from an alien planet and the other one is a human from Earth, and he accidentally picks her up and her dog and takes her to his other planet to like a mating ceremony thing, and then it's like The Hunger Games meets The Bachelor. But in the process of all this happening, the dog gets a like chip implanted so that he can communicate with everybody and they can communicate with him, because our alien character of Xyler feels like the dog is a high enough life form that he should be able to talk. And let me tell you, the first time you hear this dog talk, It was hilarious. I literally was in bed reading the passage and I had to stop, read it aloud to my husband, and I died laughing for like 10-15 minutes. It was so good. This is also a book that I would describe as a little bit Mass Effect-y. It reminds me a little bit of Mass Effect in the relationship between Xyler, who is an alien, and Beryl, who is our human, and it was great. Number 7, Tali'Zorah Vas-Normandy. A character who grew throughout the book and ended up becoming an amazing character. I'm going with Sophie Price from Vane by Fisher Amelie. This is, I want to say it's probably more of a new adult book. This one is actually quite dark, in the fact that we have Sophie as our main character, who is Vane. I mean, yes, you're getting exactly what you paid for here. But throughout the course of the book, she learns how to come out of being all about herself and all about how she looks and all about how she is perceived to being one of the most generous and loving people. And I absolutely love this book. I read this book as an ebook a few years ago on a vacation, and as soon as I came home, I had to purchase it as a physical book. This is an indie published, I think self-published book. The first in a series. I haven't read any more yet, but I believe they are all focused on dark aspects like the 7 deadly sins and one character slowly becoming better, or at least I hope they all slowly become better, because it took her a little while, but her journey was so impactful for me. I absolutely loved this. I cried a few times, but her journey, so well done. She became an amazing character. Okay, question number 8. We are getting to our spoiler stuff. I will put spoiler up on the screen until we move on to the next question. This is Mordin Solus and Thane Krios, a character that had a tragic death that you wish you could bring back to life. I know I'm gonna pick a book for this question. However, if I had to pick anybody from the Mass Effect world to bring back to life, Mordin Solus. I know I'm probably going to be very divisive about this answer, because I'm sure there's tons of people that love Thane, and I love Thane, but I cannot even listen to Pirates of Penzance without thinking about the Scientist Solarian song, and I absolutely cried for a while the first time I played this game at that part. Okay, moving on to the book. Here we go. I'm going to pick, again, spoilers, Livy from The Dark Artifices, specifically Lord of Shadows. I knew this book at the end was going to be devastating. That was the whole reason I ended up putting it off for years. It was devastating. It came out of left field, but not exactly. It was just such a high action, fast-paced scene, and then that's the aftermath. Like, I can't believe it. Also, it has one of my least favorite tropes, and that is where an author kills off one half of a pair of twins. Yes, I do understand why some of this had to happen, but at the same time, I would definitely bring her back. Number 9, Reapers, a villain that you love. So for this one, I'm gonna go with the villain from The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. I'm not gonna get into who it is, because again, that's sort of a big spoiler, but also at the same time, I feel like you really do need to experience it as the book. But I love the nuance we had, especially because in this book, we have multiple alternate realities. And so even though he is a villain, and he is a villain in multiple realities, there is the differences, the slight differences that happened in his upbringing and everything that happened like that in this book that our main character of Kara is sort of figuring out over the course of it. And yes, even though definitely a villain, I don't like the character because of that, it is such a good villain. And then number 10, the ending. We have 3 parts for this one. First, Destroy, a book or book series that you wish you could make disappear. For that one, again, it took me a while to figure one out, but I figured one out. I'm going with Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. This was a book that we had to read in AP English, and I hated it. I hated having to analyze it. I hated having to figure out why there was a candle and a painting, I'm pretty sure it was. It was so annoying. And the whole reason I'm getting rid of it is because I had to analyze it. I don't like it when teachers and schools make you have to read books, because more often than not, it makes kids not want to read books because you think you have to analyze everything. I just want to read for fun. I don't want to analyze it, and I want this book to disappear. Control. An author you wish you could control in order to change something about their book or book series. For this one, I'm going with C.M. Stunich, but very specifically the Adamson All Boys Academy series that I just read in October. I read the first book about a year or so ago, gave it 5 stars. I reread it this year, gave it 4.5 stars. And it is definitely a mix between reverse harem romance and a mystery thriller, murder mystery sort of thing. And I really, really enjoyed the first book. We don't have as much of the romance. Some of it's developing a little bit, but we definitely have the murder mystery elements because of the fact that our main character is a girl in an all-boys school, and she's dressing as a boy because she doesn't want to be found out to be a girl, at least not yet. But it seems like somebody is coming after her to kill her because of that, because the first time they tried to integrate the school with a girl, she ended up dead. It was a very interesting concept. Then we moved into book 2. I ended up giving it 3.5 stars. I felt like the mystery aspect got put on the back burner a little bit too much, and we had too much romance and sex, mostly sex. There wasn't a whole lot of romantic build-up in the relationships. And then in the third book, I gave it 2 stars. I was really slogging through it. We did eventually figure out why and who did the whole murder stuff. However, it felt a little bit thrown together, and I really just wish I could have controlled the author and had her focus so much more on that murder mystery suspense element, because that part of the first book was amazing, but it definitely got put on that back burner in the second 2 books in order for the character to have sex. And then finally, synthesize. 2 authors you wish would co-write a book. So the 2 authors that I'm going to be picking are Aiden Thomas, author of Cemetery Boys, and Cassandra Clare, author of all the Shadowhunters books. Cassandra Clare is one of my favorite authors, a very easy writing style to get into and to read, and I love the way that she deals with her characters and the characters' personal relationships. That is some of my favorite aspects of these books. And then Aiden Thomas is basically an auto-buy author after this first book. I absolutely loved it. And again, I feel like the strength that they have is the characters and the interpersonal relationships. Cassandra Clare's stuff is obviously more urban fantasy, and this one I felt was more magical realism, paranormal, potentially, because we do have the fact that our main character of Yadriel can see ghosts. He's part of a community of brew hexes who basically help ghosts. But I just feel like those aspects, the characters and the character relationships, could fit really well together. Like, I would love that. And that is everything. However, I did want to mention one more book and author that I just really could not fit into those questions, but that is going to be Chilling Effect by Valerie Valdez. This is another book that screams Mass Effect to me. It actually is blurbed on the back saying that it is a mix between Mass Effect and Firefly, and I definitely see the Firefly aspect as well, but it's definitely almost like a love letter to Mass Effect. They have a whole little bit in here about the elevators. Obviously, if you're watching this video, I would hope you like Mass Effect and you know what I'm talking about. But yes, this is going to be a series. I don't know how many books. I did purchase the second one. I'm hoping to read it sort of soon. Maybe beginning of next year. I have so many books to read. But I absolutely loved the writing style in this. It is own voices for Cuban American representation. We have a bilingual main character, and we have that interspecies, no, I don't know, alien human romance thing going on, and it definitely has Mass Effect vibes, and I absolutely loved it, and I had to include it here even though I couldn't fit it on the questions. And then that is everything. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Let me know who your favorite Mass Effect character is. In case you weren't able to tell, mine is Garrus. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more videos. I have videos up Mondays, Thursdays, and sometimes Saturdays, so I will see you then. Bye.